Hey there, I'm Marley. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making something I think you're really going to love. These are almond flour chocolate chip cookies. If you're craving something sweet, but you also want to stick to your health goals, these are the cookies for you. I just want to tell you, I shared these cookies with a friend who was on a low carb diet, and she was shocked at how good they were. So I can't wait for you to make these with me. I'm really excited. I'm going to put these aside for a little bit and we'll start to show you how they're made. It starts with 2 cups of almond flour. Now I measure my almond flour very similar to how I measure regular flour, which is I spoon it, sift it a little bit, spoon it into the measuring cup, and then level it off. So there we go, 2 cups of almond flour. And then to that we're going to add a half a teaspoon of baking powder and maybe around a quarter teaspoon of salt, just a little bit of salt to give it some added flavor. And I like to sift that together. These are your dry ingredients. See how simple this recipe is? That's another thing I love about it. It's pretty easy to make. So we'll just sift that together a little bit. Okay, now let's move on to the wet ingredients. This is 2 tablespoons of vegan butter. I'm just going to use this spoon to get that out of there. I have a quarter cup of almond butter here. This is around a quarter cup of maple syrup. You can use agave nectar as well. And I have a flax egg. Now I make my flax egg, I use 1 tablespoon of ground flax. It's always important that you use ground flax when you're making a flax egg. And I use, I add 3 tablespoons of water to that, and then I just let it sit for a few minutes. You don't have to let it sit, but I like to do that. Now this is still pretty firm, so I'm going to put this in the microwave for about 10 seconds. We want to get it warm enough that you can stir it, but not so warm that it, would melt the chocolate chips. So that's why I think 10 seconds is just a perfect time. And let's see if I was right. Yeah, it looks pretty good. You can see that the butter has softened up a little bit. Now stay tuned because I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of my favorite substitution ideas. If you're looking to change this recipe up a little bit, I always encourage that. Change it up however works best for you. But we can brainstorm a couple ideas that might be fun. I love brainstorming recipes, so that's right up my alley. Okay, so that's just good enough. We're not trying to it doesn't have to be some homogeneous mixture, but it just needs to be mixed up enough that it's gonna stir. So I'm gonna pour that in with here. With this almond flour mixture. And I'm going to get the spatula. I love having a smaller spatula. I have a lot of bigger spatulas, but for small batch cookies like this one, I think I forgot adding some vanilla. So let's just go ahead and do that before I get that all stirred in. I'm going to add around a teaspoon of vanilla. So I'll just kind of mix that in. That's an okay thing to do when you've forgotten an ingredient. Just incorporate where you can. So let's just stir this all together. This makes, the other thing I like about it is this doesn't make a ton of cookies. So it makes, I want to say around 12, I'm guessing. And what's nice about that is that, if you're like me, sometimes having temptation around the house is not, not always a welcome thing. So I like making these cookies. They're pretty simple. They come together pretty fast and then they're gone because we eat them. So they freeze really well too, so that's another thing is you can bake these and then freeze them, and then that's the dough. So what I like to do is I like to pour in most of the chocolate chips, but not all of them, and I'm going to show you why in just a second. So let's just stir these chocolate chips in here. I like to have them spread throughout the dough so that way every bite gets some nice chocolate chips in it. Okay, that's it. This is the cookie dough right here. You can see that it's egg-free, it's gluten-free, it's vegan. There's so many boxes that this recipe checks off. That's one thing I love about it. It's a perfect summer cookie, I think. So I've got a pan here lined with parchment paper, and what we're going to do is just start scooping these out. Now these cookies don't spread very much, so you can put them right next to each other. So you don't have to give it too much space. Sometimes you want to give cookies up to a couple of inches in between. I don't do that with these. The other thing I was going to point out to you is I'm just using a typical cookie scooper. I wonder if I can get just another row in there. I think I can do it. I'll just kind of put those in here like this. This is a smaller pan. But having a cookie scoop is important because it keeps the cookies kind of uniform in size. And steal some of that from there. Put this right here. Okay, look at that. We did it. Okay, now why I reserve some chocolate chips, because I find what happens is when I'm putting cookies into a pan like this, oftentimes there won't be any chocolate chips on top. And I like cookies that have a real dramatic look to them. So I like to just press a few chocolate chips into the top that make these look amazing. Amazing. And that's what we're after. People will look at these cookies and just go, oh my gosh, I have to have these. That's me. I'd love to be the person bringing the food that everybody wants, they swoon over. They like go to that food and they want to eat it. That's me. That's who I am. It's what I'm after when I'm taking treats somewhere. I love it when people say, oh my gosh, this is so good. So that's why I like to have, I put some chocolate chips on top. You can also add some flaky sea salt. That would it added a little bit of drama to these cookies. At the same time, a little hint of extra flavor. So these go into the oven. I'm going to bake them for 10 to 11 minutes. So I'm going to put these in. I've got the oven preheated to 350. So I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes, and then I'll check them at 10 minutes, and then if I'm ready to pull them out, I like to let them cool off on the pan so they can cook a little bit longer. So let's talk about some of those substitution ideas that we were talking about earlier. I think if you don't like the flavor of almond butter, you could use peanut butter. That would be great. If you want to lower these have around 14 grams of carb, 6 grams of protein, and 3 grams of fiber. So if you were looking to reduce the carbs even a little bit more, you could use sugar-free chocolate chips. These are semi-sweet chocolate chips. So there's a little bit of sugar in them, but not too bad. You could also add some chopped nuts to the recipe as you're making it. That would be a really good addition as well. So those are some of my favorite substitutions. I also had somebody ask about how to substitute the vegan butter. I think that's a great question. And I think you could try using applesauce. I would probably substitute a little bit of applesauce with maybe even just a little bit more of the nut butter. And those two together would probably work just as fine. So here we go. This is great. I'm so excited about the taste test. I'm a little distracted. Can you tell? I've got cookies on a plate in front of me, and it's like, I can't think anymore. So this is the cookie I'm grabbing to taste test. It looks so good. Okay. Mmm. Mmm. That is delicious. I mentioned to you earlier that I shared this with a friend who was on a low-carb diet at the time, and she was shocked at how good they were. If I remember correctly, her statement was something like she's tried low-carb cookies before, and they were kind of, these are really good. They're so delicious. They're infused with chocolate chips, and they're just subtly sweet, but the chocolate chips brings out even more sweetness in every bite. So one of my favorite summertime cookies, one of my favorite low-carb cookies, and one of my favorite vegan cookies too. So thank you so much for joining me today. I have had such a great time. I appreciate you being here, and I also, look forward to future recipes that we'll make together as well. So if you like today's video, I would love it if you would leave a comment below and tell me what your favorite add-ins or your favorite low-carb cookies. I would love to hear from you. If you make these cookies, share a picture with me on Instagram. I'm at Namely Marley on Instagram, or you can do hashtag Namely Marley. That will call my attention to it. And subscribe for more recipes coming your way every week.